flying all the way in from Connecticut this morning, right?
Correct.
Adrian Correia, Netflix, Glow. He's also just the new show Rami on Hulu. He's the DP for that. You've also seen his work on Deadbeat, Nightcap, Small Miracles, Play by Play. I think you've got an upcoming American Princess.
Yeah, it premieres on Sunday.
Oh, this Sunday. Okay, so you're quite busy the last for many years.
It's been pockets.
Well, let's talk about Glow. That's the main reason you're here today. You took over as DP for season 2, which aired last summer.
Yes.
Talk about taking a show that had already done one season. You come in on the second season, and now there are certain rules. Are you going to break some rules? Are you going to set new rules? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It was an interesting conflict because of the fact that Christian lights in a very, very specific way, and they wanted to change the nature of essentially the show for the second season. There are existing sets, but then those existing sets are changing to match sets from the first season, and then they redesigned a few elements of existing sets. So like the gym is redesigned in a few elements, but they wanted it to kind of feel the same. So it was an interesting thing to kind of encounter places that were new but old, and having to honor something that has already been done for the first season, but then express yourself with camera in a different way, simply because of the fact that the show basically migrates into where they live their normal lives, the gym, so to speak. So it was an interesting, that's kind of the thematic thing that I kind of latched onto for the second season. I always try to find some type of idea or central theme that kind of gives me a North Star, so to speak, so that I can kind of progress, not necessarily cinematographically, but from a storytelling perspective. And for me, that was always about the upcoming conflict that these people have between their show lives and their real lives, and that kind of psychological and physical conflict, obviously. So I kind of latched onto that, talked to Christian beforehand, and tried to honor basically a few things that he would like to have seen continue on the show. And then talking to Liz and Carly, them asking me to kind of expand visually a little bit more what goes on in the ring, because they didn't really do so much professional wrestling in the first season, except for the finale, in the show format with lights and the whole theatricality of it. So it was an interesting thing to try and find and set, especially with new crew that I had only worked with the A camera operator and the A camera first assistant before. Everyone else was new to me, and so it was getting to know everybody, trying to develop a shorthand quickly, and then deal with all the other factors at the same time. So
I saw you on the interview you did with us a few weeks ago on the Hangout, and you were talking about, because you do have the personal lives stories in addition to the wrestling stories to tell, talking about from a camera standpoint, propelling action versus reacting to action, or reflecting on the personalities and so forth. Can you discuss that a little bit on the two styles that you do with the cameras?
Well, it's an interesting show because of the fact that there are certain mandates that come with shooting that show. It's a large ensemble, so like everybody gets coverage. Everybody gets they want two eyes on every line, so they have flexibility for cutting for edit, but they want a participatory camera as well. So you kind of have to pick your battles, it's one of those things where I had to learn over the course of the season, like what really played for them in terms of the edit and what didn't. I mean, there's a good number of techno crane shots that are on the editing room floor that once that happened after the first episode, I was like, okay. And then you just kind of find your rhythm and the way that you can use camera in a way that provides energy that's going to be usable for the edit. I mean, I was trying to get an idea where I could move the camera as cinematically as possible all the time, but from an editing standpoint, it just didn't fit. And that's an interesting thing to try and work with. I had a very good Steadicam operator named Ross Kasha, and Ross could actually just wear the vest the entire time and kind of take and do entire passes of matches and whatnot and not have to take breaks. So, I mean, it was something where, because of his stamina and his kind of inventiveness as an operator, we were able to take advantage of being able to use the camera in a more kind of participatory and forceful way in terms of energy. And then I would just try and space that out if I knew there was something where a joke wasn't working necessarily, or they needed more takes of it, that I knew maybe a camera move wouldn't play as well. And you just have to be very cognizant of how things progress through the day as it's being shot, and know like maybe this might not work here because this joke worked better on the third take and they're not going to use this edit, or maybe I can fit another camera move on this part of it to keep that energy with camera. It's a constant battle of chess with that show with the camera. So
You
I just
find
had to be
that
on top of it.
the personal stuff.
Sorry, like Albert Brooks here.
Well, there's water there if you need it.
Oh,
Do you find that the personal stuff is easier to shoot, or the wrestling stuff is easier to shoot?
Well, it's funny because of the fact that the wrestling stuff is set to a certain degree, because it's a truss with all these park cans and this very theatrical set lighting, and basically we just set it up, and then they can run, and then based on the choreography, Ross can make choices, and then we make adjustments on take-to-take basis. So from a lighting perspective, it doesn't limit me at all. So when I get to have a little bit more creativity in terms of how to shoot the personal stuff, whether it means like spoiler alert in episode 9 when Bash finds out something that happens particularly with a friend of his, we could make choices that seem like small elements storytelling wise, but they make a big difference to us in terms of the scene. So like we shoot with Cook anamorphics, and then for this particular element we shot with a 40 millimeter T1 prime lens to get this really kind of dramatic fall off for this last part of the sequence. And when you can make choices like that and have that freedom on a show, you can hopefully make cinematographic choices that have big psychological impacts for the season. So
Has your Steadicam man or any other, they ever been run over by somebody?
No,
Or stepped on, or
no. That Ross is like 5'9" and like 200 pounds of muscle. So nobody really kind of knocks him around. So
the choreography has been working so far.
yeah, I mean the women on the show are absolutely amazing in terms of the physicality. They're really precise, and it takes an immense amount of strength to kind of do those things for people who aren't necessarily trained to be those kind of professionals. So the nature of the physical stuff has to be very specific, because it's like if you keep rehearsing for a suplex or some kind of specific move, and then you alter something, you can end up, that kind of physical momentum can really cause dangerous injuries. I mean, it happened on the original Glow show. There's a terrible dislocation of a woman's elbow in the ring where you see it bend back 90 degrees in the opposite direction, and it's not fake. I don't really believe it's fake. It's just theatrical, and it's just it is a level of danger. So when you got a 50-pound camera with a guy running around the ring with them, you obviously have to be very careful.
Let's talk about one episode in particular. If you get nominated this summer, Mother of All Matches is your episode.
Mm-hmm.
That one has some great, of course, you have the great wrestling scenes, but you've got the university scenes too, with the mom and the son. Talk about that first, and then what maybe was a favorite thing that you did on that episode.
Well, I mean, that was actually really. When I think of that episode, I think of that it kind of represents the season to me, because you have two women, Tomei and Debbie, who basically come to psychological breaking points with their professional lives. Tomei keeping the fact that she's playing this offensive character that her son would find kind of abhorrent from him, and then he's eventually going to find out. And Debbie coming to head with her failing of her marriage, and it's kind of like this woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown thing happening, where she kind of psychologically devolves, and then Tomei is basically just trying to keep everything at bay until this eventual point in the climax of the episode when everything kind of falls apart for her. And to me, that episode kind of psychologically represented the entire season. And not to mention that it was, from a representation standpoint, it was just really great to see Kia get a chance to act. I mean, she's a professional wrestler, but I thought she was a remarkably gifted actor in terms of being able to play things comedically and have her drama kind of come across so powerfully. And of course, Betty, to me, is, to me, it was her season in terms of just the breadth of it. So for me, that all the kind of thematic things that I kind of latched onto for the second season are in that episode.
Well, there's
So-
a reason why she got that Emmy nomination last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, she's a magnificent actor. So
Okay, well, thank you, and we'll see you back here in a few minutes for the
thank you.
full panel.